Do you already know the story of Uzza? A mysterious and captivating narrative that has a lot to teach us? A man was summoned to guard something sacred, but unfortunately he ignored the word of God and saw his life have a disastrous outcome. Discover the teachings of this ancient narrative through our video. In this video, we invite you to join us as we embark on an incredibly fascinating journey. There is a very old tale that was told in the ancient pages of the Old Testament. This is the story of Uzza, a man of great bravery who was appointed to preserve the Ark of the Lord. Unfortunately, he ended up witnessing a tragic fate. It opens your mind and prepares to discover every detail of this incredibly powerful story. Don't miss this opportunity to understand this man's story. The Ark of the Covenant was not only an artifact of inestimable value, but also a symbol of the special relationships between God and His chosen people. This sacred relic has always been present in great moments, generating veneration and respect for its holiness. For many, it was more than a golden box, it was a symbol of the spiritual connections between the Creator and His devotees. Inside the Ark, there were relics that symbolized the strength and presence of God. The tablets of the Ten Commandments were the most sacred of these relics, written by God. There was also a jar that held the manna, and Aaron's staff, which generated a miracle when it blossomed. All items were safely and securely inside the Ark of the Covenant, reminding the faithful of God's connection with His people. Imagine if God Himself entrusted you and your family with the honor of ministering and taking care of the only object on the face of the earth that represented His connection with His people. This was the honor that Abinadab's family had. He and his family were responsible for taking care of the Ark of God. For him and his family, it was a great honor to take care of something so special and sacred. Of course, we also know that it was a task of great responsibility. They must always purify themselves and walk in God's precepts and teachings to be worthy of such intimacy, if we can say so, such intimacy with God. There was a whole process for handling the Ark, and Abinadab's children were instructed in these teachings. After waiting for several years, King David decided to transport the Ark of the Lord to Jerusalem, thus reaffirming the city as the religious center of Israel and all its traditions. The inhabitants of the region gathered together and left happily, eager to celebrate the arrival of the Ark. Songs of reverence, prayers, and praises to the Lord were heard by everyone. It was a joyful event. Even those who understood little of the meaning of the religious symbol that David was carrying felt the intoxicating energy of this celebration. The air was filled with celebration. The walk of the Ark was not just a journey from one location to another. It was also a spiritual opportunity for people to get closer to the religion and history of Israel, its culture and its faith in the Lord. At the most chaotic moment of the crossing, when the journey reached the limit of expectation and concern, a scene of despair unfolded. Everyone turned their eyes to the Ark of the Covenant, a faithful symbol of the divine presence, when at one point the path became difficult. The animals pulling the cart lost their balance and the Ark, depository of all high sanctity, threatened to fall. The air was filled with a dumbfounding fear. The idea that the Ark could fall and be desecrated overwhelmed everyone. The Ark, a vehicle of infinite power and holiness, millimeters away from touching the common ground, brought a moment of uncertainty and anxiety for all those who were present. At the moment of greatest pressure, when the Ark of the Covenant was about to fall, Uzza, dominated by the impulse to save the sacred object, stretched out his hand in an instinct of protection. His heart was beating fast, but he didn't think for a second before touching the Ark to stabilize it bravely. However, as soon as he touched the Ark, Uzza died suddenly, falling to the ground. The tragedy was immediate, as was the change in the direction of this ancient narrative. The silence that followed left everyone confused, as Uzza was faced with something that surpassed his understanding, and at that fateful moment he met his death. Uzza's tragic experience before the Ark of the Covenant was more than an isolated event. It demanded an understanding of the divine holiness and invites to reflect on the relationship between the sacred and humanity. The death of Uzza, next to the Ark, showed a sign of divine power beyond any human understanding. God had sent the instruction that no one, not even his people, should touch the ark directly, as the intense power of God in it was too much for human frailty. For this purpose, he ordered the ark to be carried on wooden poles covered with gold which passed through rings. By observing this lesson, King David understood the need to venerate God's presence even more. He recognized divine holiness as something undeniable and could not be neglected. As tragic as it was, this event was not a consequence of God's unbearable anger or unjust revenge. However, Uzza, despite being part of the people of Israel, could not resist the divine power radiated by his contact with the ark. This tragedy has the message of remembering that to approach the sacred, we need humility, reverence, and obedience. It is a clear warning of God's unshakable greatness and the need to ratify his supreme control. The tragedy of Uzza is a stunning example of how God's infinite love is balanced with his holy justice. The fact that Uzza was removed from the presence of the Lord conveyed a valid message throughout the ages. It is a warning to everyone to honor and revere God on all occasions, because only then can we truly understand his divine essence. Our spiritual life requires a balance between obedience to God's commandments and reverently approaching his greatness. An uncompromising approach to his principles is not enough, as it is also essential to understand his infinite mercy and unconditional love. It is necessary to keep in mind that the holiness of God cannot be challenged. The story of Uzza points to this ancient truth. We must have the discernment and humility to see the balance between God's justice and mercy. This message reminds us that without this understanding, our spiritual path can be compromised. Share precious knowledge of the story of Uzza with those who seek to deepen the connection between man and the sacred. May this narrative, full of meaning, help open up even deeper discussions and reveal reflections of great importance. Always stay up to date with the latest news and teachings from the Bible. Subscribe to the channel, please. Thank you for following this video and for continuing to explore the wonderful Word of God. May He bless each one of us. Until we meet in the next video.
Abonnieren Sie den Kanal, aktivieren Sie die Benachrichtigungsglocke, um nichts zu verpassen. Hinterlassen Sie Themenvorschläge in den Kommentaren und vergessen Sie nicht, unsere Videos mit Freunden und Familie zu teilen. Wir sehen uns beim nächsten Mal. Die Macht des Wortes.